Were you just singing He's a Tramp and Jesus Loves Us and like combining the two?
Where did you get Jesus Loves Us? It was the Tramp from Lady and the Tramp song. You know, the fact that you don't know your Disney songs makes me reconsider everything.
Okay.
Has this all been a lie?
Has all been a lie. Okay. Well, welcome to a video that we literally just thought about a few seconds ago. And this video is a members only video. And the reason why is because we feel like we don't want to just share our business, you know, across the whole universe, but that at least the members of the channel are owed the full... The hell was that? I just put a new Fire Stick on the TV out here and it was booting up. Anyway, sorry. So we kind of felt like at least the members of the channel are owed the story about why we left the organization Shall Not Be Named. So we'll get into that, when we left, why we left, all that sort of stuff. This is family business in your family, so we figured we'd just go ahead and cover it here.
Don't even.
Anyway, so the organization that Shall Not Be Named, we talked about a lot for a long time when I used to do a lot more like sort of MC protocol, club stuff. And I still do this every once in a while because I feel like there are a lot of younger clubs and organizations out there that don't know the old rules and they matter, you know? So the organization Shall Not Be Named is Bikers Against Child Abuse, B.A.C.A. A fantastic organization, one that we both hold very high in our hearts. Does that even make sense? Anyway, we both have a super high opinion of what they do, how they do it, that sort of stuff. It's been around a very long time.
It's international.
30-ish years. It's international. There are many, many chapters in many, many countries all over the world, and tons of them in the U.S. Again, super high opinion of the organization. So first off, we should probably talk about, there were really two reasons why we left. We left in January of 23, by the way. Still super close with a lot of the people there. Olaf, who you saw in the videos, good friend of ours, and he's state president. Big Wheel, good friend of ours, and has other tons of leadership roles on a national level. Like, they good friends still. So that's no issues there.
Just good people.
Good people. But first we should share, reason number one is it got to be much. Yeah. And I'll just let you talk about that.
Whoa, way to put me on the spot. No, higher, baby. Oh, it's higher. There you go. Where do you start? So for those of you that don't know, don't leave, you stay in it.
Okay, I get to hold the phone. I don't have my cameras. They're still in the rig from Sturgis.
Those of you that know that I'm an attorney for children in the foster care system. And those that don't know now. Does that make sense? That was an easy way to phrase it, right?
Yeah. So yeah, go hit it. Hit it hard, sister.
Working with kids who have been abused, abandoned, or neglected, and it's a lot. It's
a 60, 70, 80 hour a week job.
Yeah, it's a lot, and that's what you do day in and day out. And you see some things you'd rather not be seeing, and you deal with things you'd rather not be dealing with, but it's got to get done. And kids need us, and that's what we do.
And so doing that 12 hours a day, she probably doesn't realize it's 12 hours a day, but 12 hours a day, 5, sometimes 6 and 7 days a week. And then on the weekends, being responsible for the same thing, you know. Let's be honest, as a almost 20 year, you know, it's almost 20 years ago that I joined B.A.C.A. We see things you don't want to see that are painful, but nothing like she sees on a Monday, you know, like every day. So I always, for years, said in our meetings and stuff that, hang on a second, sorry. I had my coffee in my hand. I couldn't change hands, and you can't hold the phone up. All the cameras are in the rig still from Sturgis. That's why I'm using my phone. Anyway, so first joined the organization in I can't remember if it was 2003 or 4. It was one of those 2 years. I remember the bike I owned at the time, because, you know, all dudes they trace their entire history by, well, I was on the Softail Deluxe, so it had to have been this year. Anyway, so you see terrible stuff, but for forever I've told all of the brothers and sisters in the organization, whenever egos started getting big and we felt really important about ourselves, I used to always say, hey, the heroes are those people, and child advocates, and caseworkers, the social workers, the cops that have to go pull kids when there's a violent situation. I mean, those are the freaking heroes. We're just a tool in their toolbox. So sometimes you got to kind of tone down your own self-assessment, you know what I mean, and give props to those that do the hard stuff all day. That's another one. Another reason why she'll never take credit. She's too humble. Anyway, so fantastic organization. Again, we loved them. We super close friends that are still close friends, but it got to be too much for her to do this all day, every day, and then do it all weekend. It became, you know, when tears are a common thing, it's time to change something, right? So she had talked about leaving, and in my professional medical opinion, after doing that a long time, when you have a young child in the house, right, B.A.C.A is a full-time job. It's a second full-time job besides the one that actually pays you. And just so you know also, no one gets paid from B.A.C.A. After I said full-time job, I realized that's a flag that might raise that I want to make sure we address. B.A.C.A is 100% volunteer, right? You give all your time, you burn your gas, riding your bike all over the place, put on 10 to 15,000 miles a year, and you're not getting paid. So everyone needs to understand that. B.A.C.A members are 100% volunteer. They're not getting paid. As a matter of fact, the day you work hard for your 18, 24 months of training and certification, all that sort of stuff before you earn your patch, the first day you get your patch, you say, congratulations, you owe us $45 for the patch. So no one's getting comped. Anyway, I completely lost my train of thought.
Well, it becomes a full-time job.
It is a second full-time job.
Your own job on top of having a small child in the house.
And what I was getting at now, remember, what I was getting at is when there's a married couple and they have a younger child, as we do, it's either both in or both out, in my opinion. Because now, someone could disagree with me, and I could see different points of view where you say, well, yeah, but if the other one takes care of the kid all the time, then it's fine for the member to do this thing.
Couple that with you're traveling with my work, it becomes a lot.
So I felt for us, we had to either be both in or both out, because I can't imagine her leaving and then me being gone at least 2 out of 4 weekends doing stuff all day long and leaving my wife and child at home and being away from them. I just didn't feel fair. So I'm not trying to put myself in the camera more. It's just
your arms aren't.
My arms aren't long enough. So I felt it was either both in or both out. So what we did, and this is important, and I think a lesson. As I sat down in South Dakota with the members there, on the way there, a couple of the members came to my campsite and we sat. That's how close we still are to the organization. They came and sat down and we talked to a local P and had a good time. Great dudes. And the thing that was on his mind. Yeah, no one's making fun of you. Yeah. So lovingly. So he was waiting there, the chapter P, waiting for me to address this because he's been a member for I think 10 plus years himself. So he's an old soul in the organization. It's important if you're going to leave an organization, I'll do a whole video on this I'll make public, to not abandon the organization if you have jobs to do. If you hold a title, a role, there's something you do for the organization and that has a term or not, make sure those responsibilities have been transferred off or completed before you decide to depart. So we decided to leave a couple months before this, probably late, 22. But in 23, January, what month was it? I can't remember. Elections. When were the elections? Anyway, so I was vice president of my local chapter and held a statewide position responsible for relationships with the other motorcycle clubs in the states called B.A.C.A Liaison for the state of Florida. And I completed my term as B.A.C.A Liaison and did not seek re-election, right? And then completed my term as vice president of the chapter and then did not seek re-election. So that those 2 jobs were completed and I was a regular patch member at that point. We had, between the 2 of us, you had a couple active cases, I had a couple active cases. We waited until we did not accept new ones. We waited for those cases to be put inactive. So they were complete. The children, we were not abandoning kids, of course. They were done. They were put inactive, transfer those responsibilities onto other members, and were completely clear of any and all responsibilities to the chapter and the organization before we said we were decided to resign. And it was not it wasn't a tumultuous, fight or anything like that. It was just literally you remove your patches that are organizational property, you turn them in. I had a B.A.C.A ring, which is something you would get, and I actually made sure that got transferred to a member that I've known for 20 years from Missouri. So now my buddy G has my ring, which he texted me and said, I think we're married now. Because with this ring, something, I don't know.
He needs to come and do the laundry.
So we did all the things right and stepped away proper, so there were no fights. that's the main reason we left. And, I mean, conflict is always a thing. You know, it almost always is in all organizations. Just because they're your brother or sister doesn't mean that as a person you're crazy about them. And, yeah, there were some relationships that were getting to be taxing personally, and it was escalating. And some MFers won't just let things lie. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, so there was some drama, but not a lot. Not the reason we left, but, you know, there's always BS you got to deal with. So, but anyway, so we did everything right, dotted our I's, crossed our T's, and that made the P in South Dakota happy because he was like, I always wondered if you were sitting on a job when you left. And I was like, never, never, never would I do that because that's a terrible thing to do. So if you're thinking about leaving your organization, finish your jobs and roles and stuff. Don't just bail on being sergeant at arms or something like that. So anything to add, darling Princess Muffin?
Nope.
Nothing else at all?
Nope. We just thought that we've been getting some questions and we wanted everybody to know. And that's it. Ooh, stop.
So there you go. So members of the Pro Monkey channel, we love you all to death. Why is my thumb in the way? Anyway, love you all to death. We really wanted you to know what, why, where, when. We felt you sort of deserved that. So there you have it. I will monitor this video very closely, and I will read every single comment, and I will respond, of course, accordingly. No, but I'll respond if you have any more questions or anything. But that's what it was. We left in January. I bet we'll be back someday in our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, because
always, once the mission stops being the focus, either because you have personal issues going on or because there's somebody who's kind of standing in the way of the mission and letting ego, or, you know, you have to step back because if you can't give 100%, you know, you got to be able to step back. And it's still an organization we work with through my job, through obviously our friendships. So it's an amazing cause. And if you don't know, now you know. And look it up. Volunteer where you can. Do your part. Leave the world a better place than the way you found it. So whether through this organization or any other.
So if you are interested in B.A.C.A, which I've had a lot of emails about this, BACAworld.org. You can go to the website and you can find your closest chapter that's there. You say chapters, U.S., and then your state, and it'll show you where they are, and you can get a better feel for, is it too far or whatever. Hopefully not too far, because I've actually had, I think there's at least a couple of chapter forming efforts as a result, people from the channel finding a local chapter, finding it's a little far to be a normal member at a chapter that meets 2.5 hours away, although ours was 80 miles.
Yeah, and if you can't be part of it you don't have access to a bike or a motorcycle, things like that, Guardian Ad Litem program. There are tons of organizations. Court-appointed
special advocates.
Yep.
All
CASA. So all these organizations, they work with kids. They do great work, and we're still parts. We work with all those different agencies in different capacities. Just as we don't put videos out doesn't mean those things aren't getting done behind the scenes. So do what you got to do. Doesn't matter if anybody knows about it or not. It's just important to do your part.
And I will say, though, if you're a biker, you have a bike, and you're devoted to this cause of helping kids that have been abused, in my experience, this is the only way on earth you will actually be able to look a child in the eyes and have an impact on their situation. Fundraising is noble, of course. You know, organizations need money. But if you want to get in the fight and actually be a part of this and help a kid not be afraid, BACAworld.org, find your chapter. Someday, you know, the little one's going to grow up and she might, you know, change course in her practice or this, that, and the other, and then we'll be back. But for right now, it was just the right thing to do. So anyway, we love you all to death. Take care of each other out there. We'll talk real soon.